I stood at the back of my own funeral. The rain came down in sheets, turning the graveyard into a painting of grief, one I was never supposed to see. My hands were shaking. Not from the cold. From the voice that reached me through the crowd. I'm finally free. Her voice. Lena. My wife. The woman I built a life with. The woman I bled for, worked for, loved with everything I had. She stood there in black, not weeping, not trembling. She stood with her head held high, one hand resting on the shoulder of a man I'd never seen before. And she smiled. Not a polite smile. Not the kind you give mourners. A real one. Relief. Joy. Like she'd just been released from prison. I wanted to scream, to run to her, to grab her by the shoulders and ask her what the hell she meant, but I couldn't, because as far as the world knew, I was dead. The crash had taken me. My car went off the bridge. They found wreckage. They found blood. They found everything but me. And now, I was a ghost in my own story. But ghosts can listen. Ghosts can watch. And I was about to learn the truth about the life I thought I knew. I met Lena in a coffeehouse on a Tuesday that tasted like cinnamon and new beginnings. It was one of those ordinary afternoons where the world feels soft around the edges, golden light pouring through the windows, the hum of quiet conversations blending with the hiss of the espresso machine. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't even looking up. I had my laptop open, spreadsheets glowing on the screen. Numbers that made sense in a way people never did. But then I saw her. She was sitting alone by the window, sketching something I couldn't see. Her hair caught the afternoon light like copper wire. And her hand moved across the page with a kind of focus that made the rest of the world disappear. I don't know why I kept staring. Maybe because she looked like she belonged to a different universe, one where beauty wasn't manufactured, where art mattered more than profit margins. And then she looked up. It wasn't planned. It wasn't seductive. It was accidental, like fate had nudged her just to see what would happen. Our eyes met. And I felt something shift inside my chest. Something permanent. Something I couldn't take back even if I wanted to. I didn't believe in love at first sight. I believed in work. In logic. In building things with your hands and your mind. In creating something that couldn't be taken away. But when she smiled at me soft, curious, like she'd just discovered something worth exploring, all of that felt small. Irrelevant. I stood up. I don't even remember deciding to. My feet just moved. You look lost, she said when I reached her table. Her voice was warm. Gentle. It wrapped around me like a blanket I didn't know I needed. I'm not. I lied. She laughed. It sounded like music I'd been trying to remember my whole life. Mind if I sit? She gestured to the chair across from her, and I took it. I sat down like I was stepping into a new chapter of my life, one I hadn't written yet, one I didn't know the ending to. We talked for 3 hours. About art. About dreams. About the kind of life we wanted to live. She told me she wanted to be a painter. That she wanted to create something beautiful that would outlive her. That she wanted to leave a mark on the world that couldn't be erased. What about you? She asked, leaning forward, her eyes bright with genuine curiosity. I want to build a business. I said. Something solid. Something real. Something that can't just disappear. She tilted her head, studying me like I was one of her sketches. Why? Because I don't trust things that aren't built to last. She smiled. Not the polite kind. The kind that said she understood something about me I hadn't even said out loud. Then build it with me, she said. And just like that, my future changed. We exchanged numbers. We met again the next day. And the day after that. Within a month. I couldn't imagine my life without her in it. She became the color in my grayscale world. The softness in my sharp edges. The reason I came home at night. She'd text me in the middle of the day, random thoughts, little sketches, photos of things that made her think of me. I'd save every single one. I'd read them during meetings, during late nights at the office, during moments when the weight of building something felt too heavy. She made me feel like I wasn't just building a business. I was building a life. We got married a year later. Small ceremony. Her idea. She said she didn't need a big wedding, she just needed me. I believed her. I believed every word that ever left her lips. I believed her when she said she loved me. I believed her when she said we'd build a life together. I believed her when she whispered, on our wedding night, that she'd never leave. I would spend the next 6 years paying for that belief. But on that Tuesday, in that coffee house, with the light in her hair and the sketch on her table and the taste of cinnamon still on my tongue, I didn't know that yet. All I knew was that I'd found something I didn't want to lose. And I thought that would be enough. I thought love was about giving. About sacrifice. About building something so strong that nothing could tear it down. I didn't know that some people don't want to build. They just want to take. The early years felt like a dream I didn't want to wake from. We lived in a small apartment on the edge of the city. One bedroom, narrow kitchen, windows that rattled when the wind blew. It smelled like turpentine and takeout. Like oil paint and old coffee. It wasn't much. But it was ours. Lena painted. I worked. That was the rhythm we fell into. She'd set up her easel by the window, and I'd sit at the tiny desk in the corner, drafting business plans and running numbers. We existed in the same space, doing different things, but somehow it felt like we were building something together. She'd stay up late with her canvases, layering colors I didn't understand but couldn't stop watching. I'd stay up late with my spreadsheets, planning a future I thought we'd both live in. And sometimes, in the middle of the night, we'd meet in the middle on the couch, in the dark, her head on my shoulder, my hand in her hair. Those moments felt sacred. Like we were the only two people in the world who mattered. Do you ever feel like we're running out of time? She asked me once. The question came out of nowhere. We were sitting in the dark, the city glowing beyond the window, her breath warm against my neck. No, I said. We have. Forever. She didn't answer. I should have noticed the silence. But I was too busy building. My company grew faster than I expected. Contracts came in, clients called, money followed. I wanted to give her everything, so I did. A bigger apartment with actual light. A studio space just for her, with tall ceilings and north-facing windows. Art supplies she didn't even ask for. I thought I was loving her. I thought I was being a good husband. I didn't see that I was disappearing. The apartment became a showpiece. The studio became her sanctuary. And I became a ghost in my own life. She stopped painting as much. At first, I thought it was just a phase. Creative block. Something temporary. But then she started going out more gallery events, art shows, networking dinners. She'd come home late, smelling like wine and expensive perfume, and she'd tell me about the people she met, the connections she made, the opportunities that were opening up for her. I'm proud of you. I'd say. I know, she'd reply. Not thank you. Just I know. I didn't notice the shift at first, the way she stopped asking about my day. The way she stopped looking at me when I talked. The way she'd scroll through her phone during dinner, her face lit by the blue glow, her expression distant. I told myself she was just distracted. That building a career was hard. That she needed space to grow. But the truth was simpler. She was pulling away. And I was too afraid to pull her back. One night, I came home early. I'd closed a big deal and wanted to celebrate. I bought flowers, white roses, her favorite, and a bottle of wine I couldn't really afford. I walked into the apartment with a smile on my face, ready to surprise her. She was standing by the window, staring out at the city. She didn't turn when I came in. Lena. I'm going out tonight, she said. Her voice was flat. Distant. I thought we could celebrate. I closed the Anderson contract. That's great, she said. But she didn't sound like she meant it. I set the flowers on the counter. They looked ridiculous suddenly. Childish. Where are you going? Just a gallery thing. Networking. Want me to come with you? She finally turned, and the look she gave me, it wasn't mean, it wasn't angry, it was worse. It was indifferent. You'd be bored, she said. And then she left. I stood there in the apartment we'd built together, holding a bottle of wine I'd never open, staring at flowers that would wilt by morning. And I realized something I'd been avoiding for months. The space between us had grown wider than any canvas she'd ever touched. And I didn't know how to close it. I tried to tell myself it was temporary. That every marriage went through rough patches. That we'd find our way back to each other. But deep down, I knew. She wasn't looking for a way back. She was looking for a way out. I started noticing the small things first. The way she turned her phone screen down when I walked into the room. The way she'd pause mid-sentence when I entered, like I'd interrupted something private. The way she stopped asking about my day, not because she forgot, but because she didn't care. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid. That work was stressing me out, that I was reading too much into nothing. But the small things added up. She started staying out later. She'd text me, running late. Don't wait up, and I'd sit in the dark apartment alone, watching the clock, wondering who she was with. When she came home, she'd slip into bed without a word, her back to me, the space between us cold and vast. Are we okay? I asked her one night. She was standing by the window, staring out at the city like she always did now. She didn't turn around. We're fine, she said. But her voice was flat. Empty. Like she was reading lines from a script she didn't care about anymore. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that this was just a rough patch. That every marriage went through this. That we'd come out stronger on the other side. So I tried harder. I came home earlier. I cleared my schedule. I planned date nights, reservations at restaurants she used to love, tickets to gallery shows I thought she'd enjoy. I bought her flowers, books, anything I thought might bring her back to me. But every gesture felt like throwing stones into a well that had no bottom. She'd smile, she'd say thank you, but her eyes were somewhere else. I started watching her more carefully. The way she'd light up when her phone buzzed. The way she'd excuse herself to take calls in the other room. The way she'd dress differently on certain nights, more carefully, more deliberately. Like she was getting ready for someone who actually mattered. One night, I couldn't sleep. I got up and wandered through the apartment, restless, searching for something I couldn't name. I ended up in her studio. It was messier than usual. Canvases leaning against the walls. Brushes soaking in jars of murky water. And on her desk, half hidden beneath a stack of sketches, a letter. I shouldn't have read it. But I did. It wasn't finished. Just a few lines on expensive paper, written in her careful handwriting. I don't know how much longer I can do this. He loves me, but he doesn't see me. And I'm so tired of pretending. My hands shook as I set the letter down. I stood there in her studio, surrounded by the art I'd paid for. In the space I'd given her. And I felt something inside me crack. She didn't see me anymore. But the truth was worse. I didn't see her either. I'd been so busy building a life for her that I'd forgotten to build a life with her. I never asked her about the letter. I told myself it was just her processing emotions. That artists do that. That it didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew. I was losing her. And I didn't know how to fight for something I couldn't even see slipping away. The weeks that followed were agony. I watched her like a man watching a storm approach, helpless, terrified, unable to stop what was coming. She grew colder. More distant. She stopped pretending. And I stopped hoping. One morning, I woke up and she was already dressed, standing by the door with her coat on. "Where are you going?" "Out," she said. "When will you be back?" She looked at me then. Really looked at me. And in her eyes, I saw something that made my chest tighten. Contempt. "I don't know," she said. And she walked out. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty space where she'd been, and I realized something I'd been avoiding for too long. She wasn't coming back. Not really. She'd already left. I just didn't know it yet. The night of the accident, we fought. It wasn't loud. It wasn't violent. It was worse. It was cold. She came home late again. I was sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a cold cup of coffee, my laptop open but untouched. I heard her keys in the door. Heard her footsteps. Felt the shift in the air when she walked in. "We need to talk," I said. She didn't even look at me. "Not now, Ethan. I'm tired." "You're always tired." She stopped. Turned. And the look she gave me could have frozen fire. "What do you want me to say?" "I want you to tell me what's happening. I want you to tell me why you won't even look at me anymore." "Maybe because there's nothing to look at." The words hit me like a slap. "What does that mean?" She sighed. Dropped her bag on the counter. Crossed her arms like she was defending herself from me. "I'm going to visit my parents this weekend," she said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. "I'll come with you." I offered. "No." Her voice was sharp. Final. "I need space." "Space from what?" She looked at me then. Really looked at me. And in her eyes, I saw something that made my chest tighten. Contempt. "From this," she said. "From us." The room went silent. The air felt thick. Heavy. "You don't mean that," I said. "Don't I?" I stood up. My chair scraped against the floor. "Lena, I've given you everything. Everything you've ever asked for. Everything I thought would make you happy." "That's the problem," she said. "You gave me things. You never gave me you. I gave you my whole life." "No," she said quietly. "You gave me your money. Your time. Your plans. But you never gave me a choice." I didn't know what to say. The words stuck in my throat like glass. I wanted to ask her what she meant. I wanted to beg her to stay. I wanted to scream that I'd given her everything because I loved her. But I didn't. I just stood there. And she looked at me like I was a stranger. "I need to go," she said. "Lena. I need space, Ethan. Please." I grabbed my keys. My jacket. I couldn't be in that apartment anymore. I couldn't look at her face and see that coldness staring back at me. I walked out into the rain. I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. The road was slick. The lights blurred through the rain-streaked windshield. My hands gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I wasn't paying attention. I should have been. And then impact. It happened so fast. Headlights. A horn blaring. A scream, maybe mine, maybe someone else's. The wheel jerked out of my hands. I spun. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. My head cracked against something hard. The world tilted. Flipped. Went dark. When I woke up, I was in a ditch. Rain poured down on my face. Blood filled my mouth. Pain radiated through every inch of my body, my ribs, my arms, my head. I tried to move. Couldn't. Tried to scream. Couldn't. My phone was gone. My car was destroyed, mangled, smoking. Barely recognizable as a vehicle anymore. And I could hear sirens in the distance. Getting closer, but not close enough. I tried to stay conscious. Tried to focus. But the darkness kept pulling me under. I thought about Lena. About the contempt in her eyes. About the words she'd said. From this. From us. And I wondered if this was what she wanted. For me to disappear. For me to be gone. For her to finally be free. I crawled. I don't know how far. I don't know how long. My body screamed with every movement. My vision blurred. My breath came in ragged, desperate gasps. By the time I made it to the road, the ambulance was gone. My car was gone. And so was I. I collapsed on the side of the road, the rain washing the blood from my face, and the darkness took me. When I woke up again, I was in a stranger's home, and the world thought I was dead. I didn't plan to go. But when I saw the Notice online memorial service for Ethan Cross, I couldn't stop myself. I'd spent 3 days recovering in a stranger's home. An old man named Frank who'd found me on the side of the road, half dead, barely breathing, and decided to help instead of call the police. He didn't ask questions. I didn't offer answers. I just slept, healed, and tried to make sense of what had happened. Frank brought me food. Changed my bandages. Let me use his computer. And that's when I saw it. My own obituary. Ethan Cross, 32, beloved husband and entrepreneur, died in a tragic car accident on Route 9. He is survived by his wife, Lena Cross, and his parents, David and Margaret Cross. Memorial service to be held Saturday at Riverside Cemetery. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. They thought I was dead. Lena thought I was dead. And part of me, a dark, broken part of me, wanted to stay that way. But I had to see. I had to know if she cared, if she mourned, if any part of her still loved me. I borrowed clothes from Frank. A dark coat. A hood. I looked like a ghost. Felt like one too. I walked to the cemetery like a man attending his own execution. The rain came down in sheets, turning the graveyard into a painting of grief, one I was never supposed to see. The turnout was small. A few co-workers who barely knew me. My parents, devastated, holding on to each other like they'd collapse without support. Lena's friends, whispering among themselves, checking their phones. And her. She stood at the front, dressed in black, her face carefully composed. People hugged her, whispered condolences. She nodded. She thanked them. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. She played the part of the grieving widow perfectly. But I saw her eyes. They weren't sad. They were calm. Clear. Composed. The priest spoke. Words about loss and memory and eternal rest. Words that meant nothing. My mother sobbed into my father's shoulder. My father stood like stone, his jaw clenched, his eyes hollow with grief I'd caused. And then Lena stepped forward to say a few words. I held my breath. She stood at the podium. Her hands folded in front of her. Her expression serene. Ethan was a good man, she began. Her voice was steady. Practiced. Like she'd rehearsed this in front of a mirror. He worked hard. He loved deeply. And he gave me everything. She paused. The crowd waited. But sometimes, she continued, her voice soft, almost gentle. Love isn't enough. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few people exchanged glances. And then she smiled. Not a big smile. Not obvious. Just a small curve of her lips that no one else seemed to notice. But I saw it. I'm finally free, she said. The words hit me like a second crash. My vision blurred, my chest tightened. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run to her. I wanted to grab her by the shoulders and demand to know what the hell she meant. But I couldn't move. I could only watch. Watch as she stepped down from the podium. Watch as people hugged her again. Watch as she walked away from my grave with a man I didn't recognize. Tall. Polished. Expensive suit. His hand rested on her back. Her head leaned into his shoulder. They walked together like they'd done it 1,000 times before. Like they'd been waiting for this. And I understood. She didn't mourn me. She celebrated. I stood there in the rain, a ghost at my own funeral, water dripping from my hood, my body aching, my heart shattered. And I felt something inside me harden. Turn cold. Turn sharp. She thought I was dead. She thought she'd won. But I wasn't dead. And this wasn't over. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Instead, I followed them. Lena and the man, tall, polished, expensive suit, confident stride, walked to a car, parked just outside the cemetery gates. A sleek black Mercedes. New. Expensive. They didn't speak. But the way he opened the door for her, the way she smiled up at him, it was familiar. Comfortable. Practiced. This wasn't new. I stayed in the shadows, my hood pulled low, my heart pounding in my chest like a war drum. I watched them drive away, and then I followed on foot, keeping my distance, moving through the rain-soaked streets like the ghost everyone thought I was. They went to a restaurant. Not just any restaurant. Our restaurant. Marcello's. The Italian place with the candlelit tables and the view of the harbor. The place where I'd proposed. Where we'd celebrated our first anniversary. Where I'd taken her every time something good happened in our lives. And now she was there with him. I stood outside in the rain, staring through the glass like a man watching his own life from the outside. They sat by the window. He poured her wine. A bottle I recognized, expensive, the kind I used to order for special occasions. She laughed. Leaned forward. Touched his hand across the table. Not the quiet laugh she used to give me. Not the polite one. A real one. Full. Alive. Happy. She looked happy. Happier than I'd ever seen her. I watched them for over an hour. Watched him reach across the table and take her hand. Watched her lean in, whispering something that made him smile. Watched them share dessert, feeding each other bites, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. Like I'd never existed. They left together. His arm around her waist. Her head on his shoulder. They drove away in that black Mercedes. And I stood there in the rain, soaked to the bone, shaking. Not from the cold. From rage. Later, I found a library. Used a public computer with hands that wouldn't stop trembling. Searched her name. And there it was. An article from 2 months ago. Emerging artist Lena Cross debuts, solo exhibition at Hartley Gallery. But that wasn't her name. Not legally. It was Lena Harrington. She'd changed it. After the crash. After I died, she'd gone back to her maiden name like our marriage had never happened. I scrolled further. Found her social media profiles. Pictures of her and him smiling, traveling, living. Paris. The Eiffel Tower at sunset. Her in his arms. Barcelona. La Sagrada Familia. Both of them laughing. Venice. A gondola ride. Her kissing his cheek. Places we'd talked about visiting. Places I'd promised to take her someday when work slowed down. New chapter 1, caption read. Posted 3 days after my funeral. 3 days. I sat there for hours, clicking through photos, reading captions, watching her live a life I'd thought we'd build together. And I realized something that made my blood run cold. She hadn't just moved on. She'd been ready. I dug deeper. Found email accounts I didn't know she had. Used passwords I'd seen her type once, years ago, passwords she thought I'd forgotten. And I found everything. Messages between her and him, a man named Dominic Wells. Wealthy. Connected. Art collector. Someone she'd met at one of those gallery events I paid for. The messages went back over a year. A year. I can't do this anymore, she'd written. He's suffocating me. I can't breathe. Then leave, Dominic replied. I can't. Not yet. He has everything in his name. The apartment, the studio, the accounts. If I leave, I lose it all. Then we wait. How long? As long as it takes. I read the words over and over until they burned into my mind like a brand. She wasn't trapped. She was planning. She'd been planning to leave me. To take everything. To walk away with her new life funded by mine. And when the crash happened, when I disappeared, she saw her chance. She didn't have to leave. She didn't have to fight. I just conveniently died. I wasn't just dead to her. I was convenient. I closed the laptop. Stared at my reflection in the black screen, hollow, unrecognizable, a stranger wearing my face. But I wasn't broken. I was awake. For the first time in years, I was fully, completely awake. And I had work to do. I spent the next 2 weeks learning how to be invisible. I stayed in shelters. Slept on benches when the shelters were full. Used cash I'd hidden in my wallet, emergency money I'd kept for years and never needed. Until now. I avoided mirrors. Avoided eye contact. I grew a beard. Wore the same dirty coat. Kept my head down and my hood up. I became a ghost in the city I'd once owned. I didn't contact my parents. I wanted to. God. I wanted to. I could still see my mother's face at the funeral, broken, destroyed. Sobbing into my father's shoulder. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because I needed to know why. Why Lena wanted me gone. Why she said those words at my funeral. Why she smiled like she'd won something. I started digging deeper. I used public computers in libraries across the city. Searched through her accounts with a methodical precision I'd learned building my business. Found passwords she thought I didn't know. Dug through emails, messages, deleted files, cloud storage, and I found everything. Plans, timelines, strategies. A year's worth of calculated deception. How much longer? Dominic had written, 6 months before the crash. Soon, she replied. He's putting everything in a trust for me. Once it's done, I'll have access to it all. And if he doesn't, then I'll find another way. Another way. The words echoed in my mind like a death sentence. I kept digging. Found bank statements I didn't recognize. Transfers from our joint account into one I'd never seen, an account in her maiden name, the one she'd use after I died. Small amounts. $500 here. $800 there. Spread out over months. Not enough to notice, but enough to add up to over $40,000. She'd been siphoning money for months. Building her escape fund. Planning her exit while I slept beside her every night, trusting her, loving her, believing we were building a life together. I found receipts for the apartment she'd rented in her maiden name. 3 months before the crash. A backup plan. An escape route. I found messages about the Mercedes. Dominic had bought it for her. Had it registered in her new name. Ready and waiting. Everything was ready. She'd just been waiting for me to die. Or disappear. Or get out of the way. I read through everything twice. 3 times. Memorized names, dates, amounts, timelines. Built a case in my mind with the same precision I'd used to build my company. She thought I was dead. She thought she'd gotten away with it. She thought she'd won. But she was wrong. I sat in that library, surrounded by homeless people, checking emails and students studying for exams, and I felt something shift inside me. Not rage. Not anymore. Something colder. Purpose. I closed the laptop. Stood up. Walked out into the cold night air. And I started planning. Not revenge. That was too simple. Too easy. Justice. She wanted me gone. She wanted my life. She wanted everything I'd built. Fine. Let her have it. For now. Because when I came back, when I rose from the dead like a ghost, she couldn't ignore I was going to take it all away. Every penny. Every asset. Every piece of the life she'd stolen. And I was going to make sure she knew exactly what she'd lost. Not just the money. Me. The man who would have died for her. Who almost did. I didn't burst through the door. I didn't shout or rage or demand answers. I did something worse. I came back quietly. I contacted my lawyer first. Richard Chen. A man I'd known for 8 years. A man I trusted with everything. I showed up at his office unannounced, wearing clothes I'd bought from a thrift store, my beard grown out. My face gaunt and barely recognizable. His secretary tried to stop me. I gave her my name. She went pale. 5 minutes later, I was sitting in Richard's office. He stared at me like I'd risen from the dead. Which, technically, I had. Ethan? His voice cracked. His hands gripped the edge of his desk. But you, they said the funeral. I know what they said. I sat down across from him. Pulled out a folder I'd assembled over 2 weeks. Printed emails. Bank statements. Screenshots. Receipts. Timelines. Everything. I slid it across his desk. I need you to do something for me. He opened the folder. Started reading. His expression changed with every page: shock, disbelief, anger, disgust. This is. He looked up at me. Ethan, this is conspiracy to commit fraud. This is. I know what it is. She thought you were dead. She's been collecting on your life insurance. She's been accessing your accounts. She's been stealing from me. I know. He stared at me for a long moment. This is complicated. He said finally. I don't care. I want everything back. And I want her to know. He nodded slowly. It'll take time. How long? A few days. Maybe a week. You have 3 days. He didn't argue. Richard worked like a man possessed. Filed motions. Froze accounts. Submitted documentation to banks, insurance companies, investment firms. He contacted the police with evidence of fraud. Everything she thought she'd inherited: the business, the properties, the investments, the insurance payout. He pulled it all back. Everything in my name. Everything I'd built. Gone from her grasp in 72 hours. And then I went to see her. I didn't call ahead. I didn't knock. I used my key, the one I'd kept hidden, the one she never thought to change, because why would she? I was dead. The apartment was exactly the same. Our apartment. The one I'd bought. The one I'd furnished. The one she'd claimed as her inheritance. I walked in quietly. The door clicked shut behind me. She was in the living room, sitting on the couch with Dominic. Wine glasses on the coffee table. Soft music playing. Laughter in the air. They looked comfortable. Happy. Like they'd been living this life for years. They didn't hear me at first. I stood in the doorway. Watching them. Watching her lean into him. Watching him kiss her temple, watching her smile. And then she saw me. The glass slipped from her hand. Shattered on the floor. Red wine spread across the hardwood, like blood. Her face went white. Ethan? Her voice cracked. Broke. She stood up, stumbling backward, her hand pressed to her chest like she was having a heart attack. Dominic stood too. Confused. Defensive. His hand went to his pocket, probably for his phone. Who the hell are you? He said. But I didn't look at him. I only looked at her. I heard what you said. I told her. My voice was calm. Steady. Cold as winter. At my funeral. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. Tears filled her eyes. Ethan, I can explain, I thought. You're finally free. I repeated her words back to her. Right. She shook her head, started crying. Reached for me. No, you don't understand. I was in shock. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. I took a step closer. She flinched like I'd struck her. I know about Dominic. I know about the money. I know about the apartment you rented. I know about the plan. Her face crumbled. Collapsed. She looked at Dominic, desperate, pleading. He took a step back. Lena, what is he talking about? She didn't answer him. She just stared at me, tears streaming down her face. Ethan, please, she whispered. I made a mistake. I was confused. I didn't know what I wanted. Please. Good, I said quietly. She blinked. What? You're finally free. I repeated. And so am I. I turned and walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard her scream my name. Heard her footsteps running after me. Heard Dominic asking what the hell was going on. But I didn't look back. I walked out of that apartment, out of that life, and I didn't feel angry. I felt free. Freedom tastes like rain and silence. I rebuilt my life slowly. Deliberately. Like an architect, designing something meant to last this time. New apartment. Smaller. Simpler. Just mine. No ghosts. No memories. New routines. Morning runs along the waterfront. Coffee at a different shop, one that didn't taste like cinnamon and broken promises. Reading in the evenings instead of working until midnight. I didn't go back to the company. Couldn't. Too many memories. Too much of her embedded in every wall, every contract, every decision I'd made trying to build something for us. I sold it. Walked away with enough money to start over. Started something smaller. Something that actually mattered to me, consulting for small businesses, helping people build things that wouldn't consume them. Lena tried to reach me. Letters showed up at Richard's office. Handwritten. Desperate. I made a mistake. I was scared. I didn't know what I wanted. Please, Ethan. Let me explain. I never stopped loving you. Calls came in. I blocked the numbers. New numbers appeared. I blocked those too. Messages on social media. Emails. Even a few times she showed up at places she thought I'd be. I never answered. Not because I hated her. Because I didn't need her anymore. The legal battles were swift. Richard handled everything. She got nothing. The prenup I'd insisted on back when I still believed in protecting what I built. Back when I thought it would never matter, made sure of that. No assets. No alimony. No claims on anything. She'd changed her name, established separate accounts, built her exit plan so carefully that legally, we were already separated. Financially, she'd already left. It made the divorce brutally simple. Dominic left her the moment the money dried up. I heard about it through Richard. Apparently Dominic had been interested in Lena, the emerging artist with wealthy husband connections, not Lena, the struggling painter with fraud charges hanging over her head. Turns out, love built on convenience disappears the second it becomes inconvenient. The police investigated the fraud. The insurance company demanded their payout back. She couldn't pay. She declared bankruptcy. I could have pressed charges. Richard wanted me to. I didn't. That would have meant seeing her again. Testifying. Dragging everything into public view. I just wanted her gone. And she was. I heard she moved away 6 months later. Started over somewhere quiet. Some small town upstate. I don't know if she still paints. I don't know if she ever thinks about me. I don't care. My parents, when I finally told them I was alive, when I finally explained everything, cried for 3 days. My mother held me like she'd never let go. My father, the stoic man who never showed emotion, broke down in my arms. I thought I'd lost you, he said. You did, I told him. But I found myself. They understood. Eventually. We rebuilt our relationship slowly. Family dinners. Weekend visits. Conversations that went deeper than they ever had before. I was a better son now than I'd ever been. Because I'd learned something in that crash. In that ditch. In that funeral where I watched my own burial. You don't build a life for other people. You build it with them. Or you build it for yourself. I chose myself. Sometimes, late at night, I think about that coffee house. About the girl with the light in her hair. About the man I used to be, the one who believed every word she said, who gave everything and called it love. I don't miss him. He died in that crash. And I'm what came after. Stronger. Wiser. Whole. I sit in a new coffee house now. Different city. Different life. Same taste of cinnamon in the air. And sometimes, I see women sketching by the window. Artists with dreams in their eyes and pain in their smiles. And I smile back. But I don't approach. Not because I'm afraid. Because I know better now. Love isn't something you sacrifice yourself for. It's something you build together brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. And if the other person isn't willing to pick up a brick, if they're just waiting for you to build them a castle they can walk away from, then they were never yours to begin with. I take a sip of my coffee. The rain taps against the window. And I am finally, truly, completely free. Not because she let me go. But because I learned to let go of who I was when I was with her. The man who thought love was sacrifice. The man who thought giving everything meant being everything. That man died. And I'm grateful for it. Because the man who came after the man sitting here now, drinking coffee, watching the rain, building a life that's actually his. He's finally enough. Just as he is. Free.